All right, top of the morning, everybody. Frederick Murphy here again with another episode of History Before Us. And I am in the metropolis of Davidson, North Carolina, which is right up the street from Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and Davidson's in Mecklenburg County as well. And we are on a mission today. Here on the beautiful campus of Davidson, we're going to be exploring and discussing some of the historic buildings, some of the history of the college, but also a memorial that was just erected last week. Now, I don't know when you will be seeing this, but it was, what date, you all?
October 23rd.
October the 23rd. So history was made on that date. So thank you for tuning in, and make sure to subscribe and share with friends. All right, so we are starting off this campus tour here at a building that's called Sparrow's Nest. And this is going to tie into the overall narrative as it relates to the individuals that we will be discussing here on the campus of Davidson. But first, I have to introduce the folks that are going to be educating us, y'all. We have Dr. Hilary Green, and then we have Marty. Do you want to give your last name, or are we just cool with Marty?
Well, she last name, so I am Gimson as well. You can find me.
Yep, for sure. But we're here at Sparrow's Nest, and this is the building. Can you all give us some context about this building?
Yes, so we first believe the date is listed as 1840s, so we don't have an exact date yet. It's part of the research, but it's the first known slave dwelling or documented on campus. You can see from the architecture, it's actually quite grand for a slave dwelling, which wasn't to necessarily benefit the enslaved people. It was more to blend in with the motif of the campus.
Sure.
So oak and elm, which are two of our oldest buildings that we'll visit later, you'll notice that the architecture is very similar.
Right.
So this would have housed, we don't know how many people, but probably quite a few. It has a central chimney, which would have heated both sides of it. And it's far enough away from the original campus which is in that direction.
Okay.
A lot of people don't associate it with the original campus, but we know that the Sparrow family were tied to Davidson in terms of like stewardship and caretaking and such. Their house was up the hill in that direction, so this was still in line of sight of the Sparrow's home.
Okay.
And they named this the Sparrow's Nest.
And one of the things about this structure is with like oak and elm, these bricks on this building were made by enslaved people. So you can still see the fingerprints of the enslaved brick makers in this building.
Do we have any that you can
I
point
can
to?
see some of them
Let's
right
do it.
here.
Yeah, let's do it. And you had previously done this type of research at the University of Alabama, correct?
Yes.
So can you provide the audience with just like your approach? Why is this something you're very passionate about? And why should other people be interested in it on our campuses here in the United States?
One of the things I like about this building is something like this. Our documentation, we don't really have many on, but we had the architects in the building and the craftsmanship of those who made the bricks and the building that itself, that we talk about architectural tours, but we never talk about the people who made those campuses, who made these buildings, and who helped sustain the college campus.
Sure.
So for this building to have it mirror the other two buildings of the dormitories, it goes back to Davidson, the image it wants to promote, like the University of Alabama, that you can send your children here, your sons here. They will be prepared to become future enslavers, someone who will never question the institution of enslavement and continue to perpetuate it, and you can ignore the men and women who built the campus.
Now, was it often that people, children of the enslaved who did go, of the enslavers, I'm sorry, that went off to college, I've read where every now and then they may have taken some folks with them. So what is your experience with that?
Yes, and this is one of the things with, especially on our campus, students bring their humans property with them, and they're in the classrooms, but also faculty too. And then the faculty will bring their enslaved property here and then rent it out to the college in that labor. So they're getting two salaries.
Wow.
The salaries that they would get for teaching, but also the salaries of the labor that they're providing.
Right.
So this is a larger, I like to say, college campuses as a plantation space.
Yes.
And people are coming and going, but they're in the background. And then my work at BAMA and my work is here. It's like, who are their names? What did they contribute? Where did they come from? And elevate them to the same level as the presidents, the trustees,
Sure.
and some of the people who brought their enslaved property in here. We know them when they graduate, but we don't know the people they brought with them.
Right.
So making that equal leap that we have both on the same page, but also buildings like this, seeing who were the men who made the building, but who were the men, women, and children who made these bricks, who brought these bricks to campus, who made this foundation, and by their fingerprints, we have their signatures.
Yep.
They have signed these bricks, so if we want to know the brick makers, eventually with DNA process and everything else, we might be able to get the actual signatures and the identities of those who made them. But this building has had multiple uses.
Okay.
And it's right now office space, but this was also our campus security headquarters at one point.
Okay.
This has had many afterlives. So that means electricity got added,
Okay.
HVAC in here. So there's been modifications on the inside, but the structure itself is original and intact.
If we could get inside, you'd be able to see the mantle and the firebox of the fireplace, which seems in line with some of the other fireplaces on campus that we know are of a particular era. But the thing is that there are no maps, there's no documentation saying where these enslaved people were living.
Well, that's why we got y'all.
Well, exactly.
Yes.
So
And y'all are doing a wonderful job.
we're trying. So we do have some photographs in the archives of our historic buildings that give us clues to what was here that's not in the record.
Okay.
So there's one of the oldest part of the campus. We have the original chapel that's no longer there. But along the side of the chapel, there seem to be these small wooden structures, like shacks, really.
Yeah.
And it's not on a map. It's not written down in any kind of documentation. So we're going to have to use that as a clue. Perhaps those were the slave dwellings of the people who were working in these buildings or working for the people brought here by faculty, trustees, students.
This is a question for both of you. How is it working for an institution that champions this, that doesn't encourage you to shy away from this? You know, we just had breakfast, y'all, and so this was some of the stuff that we were talking about off campus. But how is it working in this type of environment, and how does it strengthen your ability to be authentic and strengthen your research?
So for me, I'm not in opposition to doing the work. I am a U.S. historian who researches the history of African Americans, largely of the 19th century and the 20th century. But I not have to fight with administration to tell this history.
Right.
I get the support of having classes where my students also are encouraged to do this history. It's not saying, oh, don't take that class because you're going to learn about that race thing. It's, no, you should take this class because you'll learn about campus history.
Right.
And that support is so unusual in this time where schools are being forced to eliminate those titles. They have to master work. And so having the support of the administration and other people on this campus is a huge difference in order for me to do the work that I love as a true historian of the U.S. who highlights and recovers and amplifies the voices of African Americans early on from slavery to the present.
For sure. Absolutely. What about you?
I have a different approach to it because she has academic freedom of being a professor, and I am a staff member representing Davidson College, the interests of Davidson College. But luckily, the interests of Davidson College include amplifying this history, truth-telling. Let's find out as much as we can and include as many voices as we can in this storytelling. Because we are being unapologetic and admitting what happened, shedding light on it, and moving forward. So we do things like the memorial. We've got the exhibition that highlights the memorial, and then it's this ongoing work of our professors like Dr. Green, who are saying there's so much more to learn, and we'll probably retire without knowing everything, but we can establish a legacy of truth-telling.
And I see myself as this work will go ongoing as long as I'm capable. This work will continue beyond me. And I recognize I am one person in this, but we can establish that foundation. And we know more now than we did when I first came here.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, we wanted to start off here just because of the simple fact that we do know that enslaved humans were once at this site, and this is, and that is some of the subject matter in which we're going to be talking about today. But now we're going to head to the other reason in which why we're here, the celebration that happened on last week, as well as how the university is kind of setting the model, and if you ask me, of what other universities should be doing if they've had convict leasing and enslaved labor and other atrocities on their campus. So we're about to check that out. All right, so we are now entering the oldest part of the campus, if I've got that right, and if not, please you all correct me. But tell us about where we are walking to at this point.
Well, I can tell you where we are right now. This exact area where we are is in the vicinity of those supposed slave cabins, based on the photography. So we are approaching in this direction. That is original campus. This was kind of the yet to be campus, because we know that the Chambers building wasn't built until 1860. So that's our main academic building, and it always has been. It burned in 1921 and rebuilt. But up until that point, majority of classes were taking place over here. So we had the original chapel, which no longer stands, but it was in this kind of empty space over here behind the hands. Where Elm Row is right here was originally a 2-story building called Tammany Hall that housed the 3 professors that were first here. When that was torn down, because Elm was right here. And in 1960, it was lifted and moved to where it is. And then Phi and U Halls came in 1849, 1850. So these were all where they lived, ate, and worked.
All right, so these are some of the original buildings that's part of the quote-unquote old campus, if you will, right? And they look it. So please give us the rundown on these buildings, their use case back then, and what about now?
I'll do these 2 buildings here, because one of the things that is fascinating is the upstairs and the balconies. These were the literary societies where they had debates across the greens here. So one side would have, especially on presidential elections, would debate the side of one of the candidates, and then the other. And so the literary societies really had that upper floor for their meetings or debates and the like. And then this was a culture of a gathering space below for people to hear the arguments being made. Now on this lower level, we have offices, we have leadership development, we also have meeting spaces. But what I find fascinating on these buildings and then Oak and Elm, these were also the bricks were also made by enslaved people. And so who would have worked in this space? Who would have continued to move back and forth in this space? And I keep on thinking for here, someone like a John Baxter Williamson, who was born enslaved at Beaver Dam, which is connected to our college, and then came here and died in the 1920s as a Jim Crow era employee. This was a part of his everyday, and he used to sit on the steps of these buildings and held court and talk to people about the history and talk to people about the life. And so for me, there's multiple uses and histories to tell of these buildings, but these buildings, you can see those fingerprints of the enslaved brick makers as well. And I can imagine who came in and out of them.
So it's interesting. So when you say that they would debate, so are they, there weren't bullhorns back then, right? So how would the debates take place is my question.
Projection.
Yeah, they're just speaking out loud. They're just orating out loud.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can imagine the student body gathered on the green below.
Who are cheering, who are booing, who are clapping.
Wow.
That
took place in this space, right?
Yes, it was a very raucous time. The boys who were here in the earlier days were privileged. They were elite, and they didn't.
You said boys.
Only
So,
boys.
Give us.
Only white boys. Yes.
Okay.
That is the population that is here, and professors only men. Administration only men. White men. So this was a very white place to be. And the boys were not refined in sense of the gentlemanly behavior you would anticipate. These boys came here away from mom and dad, away from the eyes, and they had a good time. They had a very good time here. We have reports of fights and the arguments, the vandalism and things that they did here. And it was noted in the faculty minutes and in the trustee minutes. When we did the renovation of Oak Row, we found a lot of liquor bottles, beer bottles, and things under the floors from these students, and because we can date the bottles and we know exactly when it was.
And also too, the students at the time were no different than college students at other campuses.
Right.
And we like to think about Davidson, and they were trained to be ministers. That doesn't mean they weren't college students either.
18 is 18. Yeah.
18 is 18. So today is Halloween, 2025. I gotta ask, because there's ghost tours happening everywhere. Are any of these buildings haunted?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
All of our buildings have stories. If you ask the right people who have been here long enough, they'll tell you about weird things that have happened. I would throw this one out there, debunk it all you want. But this building in particular, this is Uminian Hall. So the night before the dedication last week, we had the Reynolds lecture, and Clint Smith, who was class of 2010, gave a beautiful lecture for us. So we're walking back to our cars afterwards. It's about 9 o'clock at night, and the fire alarm was going off in this building. There's no fire. There was a sensor that picked something up. So the fire department comes. We had 3 trucks here. It was quite a scene, and they eventually realized that it was a false alarm. I like to think that Enoch Donaldson had something to do with that. And so, Hilary, can you tell us about Enoch?
Enoch Donaldson started working on the campus in the 1880s. He dies in 1962, still working on our campus. And for him, this is one of the buildings we have pictures of him standing in front of. He would have worked in this building and all these other historic buildings. And I think it was his way to say, we're still here.
Yeah.
And now I get to see the memorial that's honoring me from the window. So you have to pay attention.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I love it. So all you folks that believe in spirits, this is it. This is it.
It happened here.
And you all's building is right there.
Yes,
right?
that's 1848.
1848.
Yeah, it started off, so what you see is kind of a vernacular iteration. So the right side of the building that we see was the original store. So it was
Campus store or community?
Community, yeah.
Okay.
And it was kind of a one width wide building, and that went into an L shape. So the back left corner, it came eventually, but it became a hotel. It was called the Helper Hotel, named after the owners of the hotel, and eventually became a boarding house where when the girls would come into town to visit the boys, they would stay here. And the boys were only allowed to go to the top of the stairs to deposit the bags, and they had to come right back down. No, you could not step 1 foot on the top landing. So, because the depot is right behind. So they would come in on the train and visit and such. But over time, the college bought it from the town, and it's now a faculty building.
Okay. Cool. All right, so now we're walking up to the location. How long first off, give us the name of the memorial, how long it took for this to come into fruition, and what viewers are actually looking at?
This memorial comes out of the campus's Commission on Race and Slavery, which our former president, Carol Quillen, developed in 2017. In 2020, in August of 2020, they released a report and apologized for enslavement and post-Civil War exploitation. Part of that commission report was a recommendation to create a piece of art. Our campus has a lot of public arts, so this was not atypical to do. So December 2020 was the first meeting of the Board of Trustees committee that I got to serve on as a faculty advisor to develop what is the appropriate sculpture public art piece that will be here. And in the end, it reflects our archives for enslavement and also after the Civil War. We didn't name people. We had hands and servants. And those hands and servants became college servants, to janitors, to grounds, to everyone else. But the hands literally coming out of the historic site in a welcoming gesture is the people who toiled around these buildings, who shaped the bricks that in these buildings around us, but also those hands that comforted the first Black students when they came here, the hands that comforted the students of generations of white Davidson students and alumni who went through here. And as the campus expanded to recognize the people who continue to work and sustain this campus, who oftentimes don't get acknowledged. So this is designed by Hank Willis Thomas with Perkins and Wills architectural team, and it's with these hands a memorial to the enslaved and exploited. Before this memorial, and really before campus desegregation, if you were an African American who did not work on this campus, you were not allowed to come on this campus. You had to have a purpose. And while we have no walls, we did have a wall. And so to have it by Main Street, that you can see it, that community members feel welcomed and come in with these benches, we're changing the history of where they weren't welcome. And that's why I think the welcoming gesture of this says you are welcome today too. And that atonement of the past where they weren't before. And to talk about this history more honestly and truthfully. But this is the historic part of campus. And for me, my first time on this campus, I walked this space. I told my colleague at the time who brought me in, Dr. Rose Stremlaw and Devin Benson Spence, that slavery was here. You could feel it. Mm-hmm. The air shifted, the ground shifted, and when you look at the buildings, like, no, it was here.
Yeah.
The fact that we could put this in this space acknowledges the men and women, the brick makers, and those who will probably never know all of their names, that we remember and see them today.
For sure. And we'll discuss more about the names when we get inside. But Marty, tell us about the day that this was, that it was unveiled.
That was a magical day. It was coming together of over 1,000 people on this lawn. We had a list of speakers who brought passion and love and commitment to moving forward while acknowledging the past. I heard someone call it, it felt like a big community hug. Which we didn't know what to expect, to be honest. You never know, you can't anticipate people's reactions. And it really was a beautiful representation of acknowledgement and everyone deciding we're in a good place and we're gonna move forward with intention and respect and love. And it went on. We had lunches, we had descendant lunches, where we were coming together to break bread together.
And we had descendants representing every era of African American employment on this campus, from enslavement to post desegregation.
Wow.
And some of them, this is the first time they've been on campus since. And people came from all over the United States who represented descendants and were present. This is one of the things about this where my research and the research of the archives and our collections really came into being. Because Hank Willis Thomas and Perkins Will used our collections to develop what is the appropriate memorial. And I just remember, they're like, what, do you have any names? What documents do we have? So really bringing it all together. And they cemented quite quickly on hands because we literally had hands. Mm-hmm. And then also when they saw the other pictures from post-Civil War and Jim Crow and desegregation, they were like, no, these hands are still here, but now we know their names. So how do we acknowledge both and their labor, but also all the wastes of hands from comfort, from love, from family, in a realistic, but also we will never know whose hands these were.
Right, right.
But you can then see a hand and a person and imagine who would have been these hands.
For sure. And we have two buildings, one on this side and one on this side, which I think from a symbolic standpoint, maybe all three of these go together in some way, shape, or form. What is the story behind these two buildings?
So these were the original dormitories built in 1836 to house the students who came in 1837. So we know where the bricks came from. There was an ad placed by the building committee, and a John Caldwell won the award to have the bricks made and brought to campus, and I think it was $4 per 1,000 bricks. So they were made on a plantation. They were made by enslaved people, and then we know that they were brought to campus on a wagon that was driven by a woman named Betty Tate Davis, who was an enslaved woman.
Really?
Her story is out there, so we have her name. She brought them here. The wood that on the inside of the buildings came from Rural Hill, which is in Huntersville.
Yep, sure is.
A.B. Davidson, who was on the part of a trustee committee here, that was his plantation. So we know that enslaved people felled the tree and milled the wood and then transported it here. We have documentation of that. So We have fingerprints, we have wood, we have everything that makes these buildings artifacts in themselves. So the impressions that people leave, like Hilary had said earlier, it's the signature of the folks, and they are always going to be part of these buildings. You cannot erase their stories.
And with the details of the hand, while we don't have the worlds, I can imagine one of those brickmaker hand leaving their thumbprints as around here in this space with these buildings built by the labor of enslaved people, and they're still here.
I love it. I love it. And this is absolutely remarkable. You have to see this, you all. Again, it's on the college. It's on the campus of Davidson College. And so, in this area is called what again? Oak.
So that's Oak Row.
Oak Row.
And this is Elm Row.
Elm Row. Why those two different names?
They are trees, and also this was the designers of the original campus did it in kind of the vein of Thomas Jefferson's grounds at UVA. So they wanted to have the rows to kind of demarcate the quad. So this quad is a Jeffersonian inspiration.
Okay, gotcha. So are we able to go into the building?
Let's do it. Here we are at Oak Row. This new structure was added when we did the renovation this year, and according to preservation guidelines, when you add on to a historic building, the new material must be completely distinct from, so that you don't mislead somebody in thinking it is. The best part about this new vestibule is, number one, it's ADA compliant with our new path system in here, but also when you get in, the storefront window gives you a great view of the sculpture.
Okay, cool. Okay. Smell the newness.
Yes. Everything's so new and clean.
And I was going to say, from the beginning, you can tell this is a memorial that accompanies with these hands by featuring those individuals who make up both the enslaved and the exploited, like Marjorie Torrance here. And then also, too, talking about how we got here with the commission report and brief history, by highlighting the photos that we have of the janitorial staff from the early 80s, the laundry staff from the 80s. And one of the things about the dedication that happened, people are able to identify, like, that's such and such. So this is Talmadge Connor. His daughter spoke at the dedication. Others were like, that's grandma, that's uncle, that's this.
How important is that? Because oftentimes these people get missed, right? But they're the reasons in why these campuses are able to run. So how important is that to, at the beginning of this, right, this tour, if you will, when you walk into this building, you see those folks?
It shows that this is not just Davidson College patting itself on the back. We did this.
Yes.
It is, we are honoring the dignity and worth of these individuals, and that's part of our mission as a college. We didn't do it in the past, now we're doing it now. So to have those faces, those names highlighted, it shows these are the people who matter because they matter to our larger history and our future going forward.
And all of these pictures are related to Davidson.
Yep. All of these are employees. This is John Baxter Williamson. This is from 1920, at least 9 years before he dies.
And is this the building? I mean, this is the,
It looks like
one of the debate buildings?
it looks like old chambers, but he would have sat on stoops like this from the old debate societies and held court. And we have documentation of that in there too. But we know he was born enslaved at Beaver Dam and then ended here. So he's tied to both. He was enslaved and post-war exploited. To our other pictures of David Reed and others, and
Diane Forney.
And also to the early donors and acknowledging Beaver Dam. And the picture of this is about 3.5 miles away from our campus. The original Chambers building. Right here. Okay. And how our name from William Lee Davidson II gives us how we are, but he's an enslaver. And having this balance of both the humans and not just the men who enslaved them, but those impacts on the campus in real ways. So all these photos of our people who worked here in spaces that are recognizable to the larger campus community. So these are them on our campus.
Are you all hoping that this kind of sets the standard for other universities as well to hold court and have this type of implementation to individuals that are underrepresented who've lent to the fabric of the fabric of the institutions?
Yes, and I think one of the things where I think Davidson is a model for this, most institutions start with their history with enslavement. So 1865, we're done, no more slavery. We skip over to desegregation, and we focus on students. We never talk about the employees. We talk about both. And we did a memorial. We just didn't stop with a memorial. We gave this exhibition space to accompany the memorial. And this was a later addition to the plan. So if we're going to have with these hands, you're like, well, who are those people? This is the human side of that history, and another way to really honor those people who worked here before and whose impact still persists to this present day.
This is true, and it's interactive, you all. So there's touch to start, and you get to search the directory of names of people who were enslaved at the site.
And one of the things about this table is, as you go through, it's over here.
Okay.
We know this is the start. And one of the things in here, how we have the up and down with the single names, the ones we have last names is because of our work with, we know they survived slavery. And these are the names that they took after 1865. And through some of the descendant work of some of these Davidsons, like Cato's one, these are two different Lee Davidsons. Okay. They come from the descendant community and how they want to be represented here. So the long-time goal is for those who are known to make them known. Those with a first name only, try to see what is that last name, if we can find them and more information.
For sure.
And then also too for Reconstruction, these are documented, but we know women who worked did laundry off sites.
And this Houston name, that's one
yes.
that's down in the Marvin community.
Yes.
There's a lot of Houston.
And eventually, not yet.
Okay, not
That's
yet.
coming.
It's coming.
Okay, it's coming.
So eventually, one of the things we want to do with my students and other research is have biographies for every person. And so the Jim Crow era, you can definitely see.
Yes, tons of books.
And post-desegregation, but look at all those babies.
Oh, wow.
And Derringers, Archies, Burtons, Brown.
And these are names that we know that are still cornerstones of these communities.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about Smithville, thinking about Pottstown, Cedar Grove, where the plantation is over there, Torrance.
Yep.
Wow. And then we know more about here because we have better documentation on this side.
Yeah.
But this is here multiple generations.
Yes, it is.
And we're still learning names. And we're still adding to this. So this is one of the things about here as a touch screen and having this interactive, adding more photos, adding an opportunity for families that have contribute other pictures here too. But to know this is when we started this and started the plan for the memorial, we didn't have all these names.
So what is the call to action now that we have this and people in the community can come here and does this mirror?
It mirrors the same thing.
So what is the call to action for people that are in the community that are descendants or people that were families of the formerly enslaved or are families of the formerly enslaved? What's the call to action for those folks now?
The call to action is to know that this is a different campus. There are people who really are interested in hearing their stories, preserving it in a way that wasn't done before. And my call for them is I see you as a partner to grow this and to expand this and to expand our name base. But this site will probably this exhibition space will probably change, and we can add their voices in and have them be collaborators as we develop what is the next step of this space.
Okay.
But to really start, like, we are seeing you and we want you to be recognized.
Yes.
And I think in doing that, then we can move forward in a healthier relationship and start having more dialogue. But this is really a collaboration with shared authority. I may have a PhD, but for me, I'd rather hear from the community members. We are on the same plane in my mind. I listen to you and let me know how I can help serve and to get this told in an accurate way. And we talk about fingerprints in the bricks. you can see.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Where were these bricks? Where were these at before y'all brought them in?
Under the floor.
Okay, so okay, gotcha.
So there's part of the original construction, but for instance, the one on top that you're focusing on right now, there's a thumbprint at the top.
Yeah, I
but
see that.
that one, we were doing the archaeology prior to demolition, and we had students come doing shovel testing around, and it was on the south end of this building. We had found a piece of pottery that was very similar to this style, which is the Catawba Valley alkaline glaze. So we thought, well, let's see what's kind of next to it, adjacent to it. And we dug a hole and bam, there's this brick. And when we pulled it out, there's a thumbprint. So that was the first thumbprint we found, and we were really excited. And then as we went on, but what's so sad is that when we look at this bottom, those are tiny fingerprints. That is either a child or a small woman's fingerprints in there. So we are never going to say that children weren't involved in the labor. Yeah.
Because we know the kids, even from a sharecropping standpoint, ages of 7 years old,
Sure.
8. I mean, that's how early they got started doing sharecropping.
If they had any strength, they could be out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the other thing we found from here is this broom from the renovation, and this is dated after the Civil War, about the late 1880s, manufactured broom. And I was so excited to see this because the only people who would have used these brooms were the African American servants who would have worked in this building. And so for me, with that 1893 picture here, and then this broom, is like, is that his tool that he used in this one?
Yeah.
And it got broken off, and he just
Yeah.
got underneath the floor.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the alcohol bottles.
That was a student artifact.
Let's go.
All right. So welcome to our third room in this exhibition, where we are calling out, number one, the process that to get the hands made, and the process of the casting, the patina, the artistry that really went into this exhibition. Behind you is a beautiful piece of art by Nellie Ashford Rawls.
I was about to say Nellie, I'm sure.
I'm sure some of your viewers are familiar with Nellie. This particular piece of work is very special to us. The way it came about, but who she's representing in this, she calls out the Caldwell family. She's calling out the Davidson family. And she's calling out for the deed of transformation, how this man was able to secure the freedom of this child from the white enslaver. And that is the deed of transformation. We have, when we talked about our fire alarm going off,
Yes,
this is him.
With the big smile.
Yes.
You smile? You know what you did, brother. I love it. Keep going.
And then also, too, what I like is here, this is where we also talk about some of the more recent history with Virgil Flood, class of 80, who chaired that committee on commemoration. That first meeting where we unveiled the hands to the cast of the hands, and from this window you could see the hands. So it's just giving you how long it took, but just what it started off with, from the unveiling to the construction, manufacture of it, to the final installation.
I love it.
And when we're talking about the building being an artifact itself, we have intentionally left brick exposed to show this is, you can touch it, this is history at your fingertips. The original wood we talked about that we were able to uncover, there wasn't a lot that wasn't termite damage, but our builders were so careful to take what we could. And so when we have the lines demarcating each of these 4 rooms, we have a horizontal piece of original. And then in our back room, which currently is our reading room, it'll be a kind of a multi-purpose room, but this whole area is original flooring that was milled by the enslaved people at Rural Hill.
Wow. For them to be able to salvage this is just amazing.
It is. We have worked to secure some artifacts of Victorian era tools that we know that the servants would have used to light these fires So this is actually some coal that we were able to find under the building and around the building during our excavations. And just to be able to look at and to see the tools that people would have used, these were really well made because somebody forged these.
For sure.
And that's the other thing is we want to call out the craftspeople that, brick making is an art. Blacksmithing is an art, and these were skills that the enslaved people had that made them, number one, financially valuable, but two, that their marks are left, and it is a beautiful art that they leave behind.
And one of the things also too, we call out some of the more recent history. So we had Nellie Ashford there, and then we have Clint Smith here who gave our dedication poem, but we're also having spaces where we can hear their voices. And included in the front building, when we first came in, Clint Smith commissioned a poem for the dedication talking about the significance of the history in the past, and you can hear that, sit on the bench and hear that words, and the same thing with Brenda Tapia. And when we talk about the call is, this will be a room to record oral histories eventually, how to use that so then we can have those voices continually be in there and incorporated into this space.
But you?
I think prospective students can look at it as a welcoming place, as a place, an imperfect place that is acknowledging the past and has a solid plan to move forward. We are in the South, and we are doing things that other Southern institutions haven't been able to do or maybe won't do. But Davidson is a place that part of our mission is to acknowledge and value the worth of every individual, and that is truly what we're trying to do.
For sure. And again, you all, this site is absolutely amazing. You have to come in and tour not only the outside, of course, which as you see right here is stunning, but also the inside, because it provides a more in-depth understanding about the people throughout the various different decades and centuries that lent their skill set, their labor, their ingenuity to this campus. And like I always tell everyone at the end of these, if this is some type of history that you enjoy, unheralded history that you may not necessarily see in our history books, please make sure to subscribe and share. It's very helpful. It helps this channel reach other individuals who are seeking education that at this point in time, in 2025, our country doesn't want us to know. And so I just want to say thank you, Dr. Hilary. I want to say thanks, Marty, for taking the time today. And I'm hoping that my viewers will glean something from this. As it relates to hours of operations for this building, for Oak Grove, what are those?
So we are looking to do Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay.
And currently we're operating on a one Saturday a month, so the first Saturday of the month from 10 to 2.
Okay, good stuff. Is there going to be a website for it or anything?
That's in development. We do have a small informational page on the davidson.edu website, but more to come.
So that's it. Another episode of History Before Us. Peace and blessings.